Your parents' dream was retirement. Work for 40 years, collect a gold watch, play golf until you die. But Gen Z, we're not having it. We're living in an economy that barely rewards loyalty. We're watching pensions disappear. We're realizing that by the time we hit 65, climate change will have redrawn the map, and the financial system we've been saving for might not exist in the form we imagined. So here's what I want to tell you today. The concept of retirement, as your parents understood it, is broken. And that's not a tragedy. It's actually an opportunity to reimagine what financial freedom really means. My name is Charles, and over the next few minutes, we're going to dismantle the myth of retirement and show you what Gen Z is actually building instead. Section 1. The Broken Retirement Model. Let's start with a history lesson. The concept of retirement as we know it is surprisingly young. Before the 1930s, most people didn't retire. They worked until they literally couldn't work anymore. Then Social Security came along, designed by FDR as a safety net for the destitute elderly. The minimum age? 65. Life expectancy at the time? 60. So when your grandparents entered the workforce, retirement was a 5-year period of rest before death, a bonus round you probably wouldn't get. Then something changed. Companies realized that pensions could attract talent, and pensions became a cornerstone of middle-class life. By the 1950s, the golden age, a man could work one job for 40 years, retire at 65 with a pension, live another 15 to 20 years in relative comfort, and that was life. It was genuinely a good deal, but it was built on a very specific set of conditions that no longer exist. Condition 1. Long-term employment. You worked for one company, maybe two in your lifetime. Loyalty was rewarded, but today, the average employee tenure in the US is about 4.7 years. Companies don't invest in you because you'll be gone in 5 years. You don't invest in them because you're constantly job hunting for a marginal raise. Condition 2. Employer-sponsored pensions. In 1985, 60% of workers had access to a defined benefit pension. Today, it's less than 15%. We've shifted the entire burden of retirement savings onto individuals through 401ks, accounts that were originally designed as supplementary, not primary, retirement vehicles. Condition 3. Stable, predictable markets. Your great-grandparents could buy bonds at 5 to 6% and sleep soundly. Today, we've had two major financial crises in 20 years. We're navigating AI disruption, climate uncertainty, and geopolitical instability. Stability is a luxury we don't have. Condition 4. Low cost of living. A house cost 2 to 3 times annual salary. Healthcare was affordable. Education wasn't a 6-figure debt sentence. Today, the median home price in major cities is 6 to 10 times annual salary. Student loan debt averages $37,000, and healthcare costs are a wild card that could bankrupt you at any time. Condition 5. Certainty about the future. Your grandparents could reasonably assume the world in 2026 would look a lot like 1986. We can't make that assumption. We're planning for a future we can't predict, and yet we're supposed to sock away 15% of our income into vehicles based on projections from 1974? Why the numbers don't work. Here's the math that should terrify you or liberate you, depending on your perspective. The standard advice is you need 25 times your annual expenses to retire comfortably. So if you spend $50,000 a year, you need $1.25 million. If you spend $80,000, you need $2 million. These numbers assume a 4% withdrawal rate, accounting for inflation over what is now, on average, a 30-year retirement period. But there's a problem. Gen Z faces unprecedented headwinds. If you're starting your career today in a major city, you're looking at $1,500 to $2,500 for rent, $300 to $500 for student loan payments, $300 to $400 for healthcare, $400 to $600 for food, utilities, transportation, insurance, and everything else. You're pushing $3,500 to $4,500 a month just to exist. That's $42,000 to $54,000 a year minimum. For an ordinary life. No vacations, no emergencies, no margin for error. Now let's talk about savings. The conventional wisdom says you should save 15 to 20% of your income. But if you're spending 80% of your income on basic survival costs, how are you supposed to save 15%? You're already underwater. And even if you could save 15%, let's say you earn $60,000 a year and manage to save $9,000 annually. At 7% average market returns, which assume you're investing in equities, which come with significant risk, you'd have about $1 million after 40 years. Enough to retire on, theoretically. But that assumes you never lose your job, you never have a major health crisis, you never need to help family, housing costs don't rise further, you can tolerate volatility for 4 decades, and you actually manage to maintain discipline for 40 years without touching the account. It's not realistic. It's not even close to realistic. The psychological toll. But the financial math is only half the problem. The psychological aspect is equally broken. The retirement model asks you to delay gratification for 40 years. It asks you to sacrifice your youth when your energy is highest, your relationships are most flexible, your body is most resilient, for a hypothetical future that may never arrive. We've all heard the story. The person who works 45 years retires at 65 and dies of a heart attack at 67. They saved $3 million and enjoyed it for 2 years. This isn't a rarity, it's a legitimate statistical pattern. Meanwhile, your mental health deteriorates from decades of delayed living. You're experiencing anxiety about a future you can't control, burnout from a work situation you're trapped in, and resentment that you're sacrificing the best years of your life for a promise that keeps moving. Gen Z recognizes this. We've seen our parents do it. We've watched them work jobs they hate, miss their kids' childhoods, and develop chronic stress. And we're asking, is this worth it? For many of us, the answer is no. Section 2. Why Gen Z is building some to include in rent. Here's what Gen Z understands that previous generations are only now learning. Financial freedom isn't a destination you reach at 65. It's a state you construct throughout your life. Instead of retirement, we're pursuing what I'd call intentional flexibility. The goal isn't to stop working. It's to have enough financial leverage that you only do work you actually want to do. This is a profound distinction. Retirement says, suffer now, enjoy later. Financial freedom says, design your life so that every phase is intentional and sustainable. This is why you see Gen Z pursuing. 1. The side hustle economy. Your parents had a job. Gen Z has a portfolio. We're building multiple small income streams: freelancing, content creation, digital products, consulting, specifically to diversify our income and increase our autonomy. This isn't always admirable hustle culture rhetoric. Sometimes it's necessity, but it's also strategic. If no single employer can lay you off from your entire income, you have leverage. The strategy here is build enough passive or semi-passive income that you're not dependent on any single job. Maybe that's $500 a month from a digital course, $1,000 from freelance writing, $400 from affiliate marketing. Suddenly, your day job becomes optional rather than essential. And when your day job is optional, you have the power to negotiate real boundaries. 2. The slow escape mentality. Rather than the binary choice, work forever or retire completely, Gen Z is pursuing what I'd call the slow escape. It's the idea that over time, you incrementally build toward a lifestyle where less work is required. Maybe at 25, you work full-time and invest the surplus. At 30, you've built enough that you can move to part-time or contract work. At 35, you're doing mostly freelance work with high margins. By 45, you're semi-retired doing consulting or advising. This isn't a sudden cliff, it's a gradual glide path where you're not sacrificing your youth, but you're progressively extracting yourself from the necessity of employment. 3. Geographic arbitrage. Here's something previous generations couldn't do as easily. Work in a developed economy while living in a developing one. If you work as a software developer, designer, writer, or consultant, you can earn $60,000 to $100,000 plus annually while living in countries where your cost of living is $15,000 to $25,000. This isn't just a vacation. People are doing this for years. Suddenly, that $1.25 million retirement figure becomes completely irrelevant. You don't need it. You can live a high-quality life on $25,000 a year in the right location. Build $500,000 in assets, and you've potentially covered 40 years of expenses. This is why we're seeing the digital nomad movement, the remote work wave, and the geographic flexibility that previous generations couldn't access. 4. The skills-based approach. Rather than betting everything on a job title, Gen Z is betting on skills and reputation. The safest financial position isn't owning a pension. It's being valuable enough that people pay you for your time, whether as an employee, freelancer, advisor, or through digital products. This means constantly learning, building in public, cultivating an audience or client base, and maintaining skills that have demand in multiple markets. It's more work up front, but the payoff is massive. A programmer with a strong personal brand and multiple income streams has far more security than someone with a pension. 5. Lifestyle design instead of consumption patterns. Your parents built retirement around consumption. A big house, a nice car, vacations in Florida. The plan was to have maximum security and maximum stuff. Gen Z is designing around experience and autonomy instead. Smaller apartment, maybe a car share, fewer possessions, more time freedom. Lower cost of living, not as a sacrifice, but as a deliberate design choice. This isn't deprivation, it's clarity. If you need $30,000 a year instead of $60,000, you need $750,000 instead of $1.5 million. You can achieve that 10 years faster. Section 3. The realities and challenges. Now, I need to be honest with you. The approach I'm describing, building multiple income streams, pursuing flexibility, optimizing your lifestyle, works really well if you have certain advantages. If you have a degree or certifiable skills, if you're able-bodied, if you don't have dependents, if you live in a developed country with digital access, if you speak English, if you can tolerate financial uncertainty, then yes, this path is increasingly viable. But if you're working a minimum wage job with no degree, if you're supporting family members, if you live in a place where remote work isn't culturally accepted or technically possible, if you're managing a chronic health condition, then the system is still rigged against you. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. The Gen Z financial freedom approach works well for a certain segment of Gen Z. For others, we're still fighting for basic dignity and the ability to meet our needs. The uncertainty tax building. Financial flexibility comes with a cost, uncertainty. When you're not in a traditional employment relationship, you don't have the security of a paycheck. You have feast and famine cycles, you have periods of intense work and periods of no work. This is stressful. And it's particularly stressful for people with anxiety, for people who like routine, for people who have dependents and need stability. Some people thrive in this environment. Others would be miserable. Both are valid. The networking advantage. Here's something nobody talks about. The people who are most successful at building alternative income streams started with advantages. Wealthy families who could support them through the early phases, extensive networks, access to information, and mentorship. If you're building your financial freedom from nothing, it's significantly harder than if you start with some social capital or family support. The mental shift required. Finally, this approach requires a mindset shift that not everyone is capable of or interested in making. Your parents could check out. They could do their job, not think about it after 5 p.m., and trust that the system would take care of them. That's not an option anymore. Building financial freedom in Gen Z requires constant learning, constant optimization, constant engagement. It's liberating for some. It's exhausting for others. Section 4. The practical framework. Okay, so let's get practical. If you want to move beyond the broken retirement model and build intentional financial freedom, what does that actually look like? Step 1. Define your number, not retirement savings, your actual number. The annual amount you need to live the life you actually want, not the life your parents want for you, and not the life Instagram tells you to want. Your actual life. Write it down. If you're honest, most people need less than they think. Once you strip away status spending and social pressure, the number is often $30,000 to $50,000 for a comfortable life in a developed country. Once you have that number, you've demystified the whole thing. You don't need $2 million, you need $750,000 to $1.25 million. That's a different challenge entirely. Step 2. Reduce your burn rate. The single most powerful thing you can do for your financial freedom is reduce how much you need to spend. I'm not talking about deprivation. I'm talking about intentional living. Move to a cheaper city, downsize your housing, question subscriptions. Reduce consumption that doesn't actually bring you joy. For every $5,000 you reduce your annual burn, you reduce your target by $125,000. That's not a small thing. Step 3. Optimize your income. This is where the multiple streams come in. You need to move beyond a single job as your only income source. Start with your primary income. Are you earning market rate? Are you at least in a role where you can develop skills? Are you learning things that make you more valuable? Then layer in side income. What skills do you have? Who pays for those? Can you offer it to people who aren't your employer? Don't start with the idea of replacing your income. Start with the idea of adding 10 to 20% through a side venture. Once that's established, add another stream. Build a portfolio. Step 4. Invest for growth. Once you've reduced your burn and optimized your income, you need to invest the surplus. This is where it gets scary for Gen Z because we're investing during historically volatile markets. But volatility is actually your friend when you're young. Downturns are buying opportunities. Most financial advisors will recommend a simple portfolio. Low-cost index funds, diversified across domestic and international markets, with some fixed income based on your risk tolerance. For younger people, 80 to 90% stocks and 10 to 20% bonds is reasonable. You have 40 years for the market to recover from downturns. Step 5. Plan for flexibility, not a cliff. The key difference between this approach and traditional retirement. You're not planning for a cliff date. At 30, you might have saved $100,000 and built $500 per month in passive income. That's not retirement, but it's leverage. At 40, maybe you have $400,000 and $2,000 per month in passive income. That's meaningful. At 50, you might have $800,000 and $4,000 per month in passive income. Now you can choose almost any lifestyle. The point is, you're not waiting until 65 for everything to change. You're extracting yourself gradually with increasing optionality. Step 6. Be willing to adapt. The biggest difference between the retirement plan of previous generations and the financial freedom plan for Gen Z is adaptability. You can't predict the future. Technology will change. Markets will shift. Unexpected things will happen. The system that works is the one that's flexible enough to adapt. That means checking in regularly, adjusting your strategy, being willing to shift your income sources, relocating if necessary, changing your lifestyle if circumstances change. It's not a set-it-and-forget-it plan. It's an active, ongoing process. Section 5. The deeper truth. Financial freedom isn't about becoming wealthy. Wealthy is a number that keeps moving. You hit it, and suddenly you need more. Financial freedom is about reaching a state where money is no longer the determining factor in your decisions. You can live where you want, work on things that matter to you, spend time with people you love, take risks, change directions. For previous generations, that meant retirement at 65. For Gen Z, it might mean something completely different. Maybe you achieve it at 40 by living intentionally and building skills. Maybe you never achieve it because you're dealing with systems stacked against you. And that's not a personal failing, that's a systemic problem. But here's the thing. We have more tools to build financial freedom than any generation in history. We have access to global markets. We have the ability to monetize our skills instantly. We can access information in seconds. We can build communities across the world. The retirement model of our parents is broken, yes. But that frees us to build something better. something that works with our reality instead of against it. It's not easier, but it's more honest, and it's more aligned with how we actually want to live. The truth about financial freedom is this: it's not something that happens to you at 65, it's something you build intentionally throughout your life. It doesn't require a six-figure income. It doesn't require luck. It requires clarity about what you actually want, the discipline to live beneath your means, the creativity to diversify your income, and the patience to let compound growth do its work. The retirement of your parents is broken. Good. Let it be broken. Build something better instead. If this hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You might change their life. And subscribe. See you in the next video.